Alright, hello again guys. We are live with another AD Talks and we're continuing what we've been discussing for the most part recently, which is getting into roleplay. I think today we are covering character creation, the basis of it, or what to do, where to find information, you know, a bit of guidance for profiles in general.
If you're completely new and haven't a clue where to go.
Yeah. Pretty much it. We're not telling you what to do, we're just giving you advice because at the end of the day it's your character, right?
Yeah. You
Uh,
can do whatever you want to do, even if we wouldn't necessarily do it ourselves.
I mean, if you want us to tell you what to do, that's fine too. Although I probably won't tell you what to do either way. Let's pull up this.
We'd be bad at it.
Consider it, if you've been watching the streams for a while, yeah, probably. We have many brain farts. Yeah, let's go right into it, I guess.
If I drop, it's because my computer may be having a tiny seizure.
If your computer has a tiny seizure, I'll panic. With any major character that you, no, I say major, with any character you want to create to immerse yourself in the World of Warcraft universe, the first thing to consider is their backstory, where their background is basically.
Because that is going to be the basis of what has made them whoever it is that they are. And they need to line up. Like, you can't have a stoic, hardened veteran who, doesn't have a backstory that's led him to that
Yeah,
destination. So it's key.
it's something you should fully consider, and especially depending on the race you are as well. There's some key things in there lore to consider. Let's say, for example, if you're about to pick an orc or something, there's clans, and if you pick a specific clan, so two main ones that stand out: Frostwolves being more spiritual, you know, more about like family, teaming, you know, all this sort of thing. Whereas Warsong is more brutal, barbaric, basically.
Honor sort of systems and things like that, and combat based
Yeah.
stuff like that. I don't know an awful lot about orcs.
There's a lot of different cultures to consider when it comes to orc societies.
A general timeline is usually fairly good too, just because a lot of the different races live for different amounts of time. They have seen different parts of history, and like for example, there's a mistake that I made when I first started was I assumed that the entire world that's available was available at the time was open for picking. So my very first blood elf was apparently born in Shadra, which is completely impossible unless she was like, I don't know, 10, which she wasn't. So just have a rough idea of how the timeline has come around and where your character might have been and what they might have seen.
it is important with long-living characters to also consider stuff that's happened in Azeroth. So, for a night elf, if you're like 10,000 years old, it's possible you were in the War of the Ancients, basically, or the War of the Shifting Sands. There's quite a bit to consider with that, especially with Draenei as well. I mean, they planet hopped a lot, and I think that was in a space of 20,000 years. And if you kind of say your Draenei is one that's originally from Argus, you have a lot of things to consider that what happened in between, basically.
But thankfully, there are a lot of sources
There
for
are
that information.
sources being, I think, the more original or up-to-date pieces being the Chronicle books that we mentioned in the first one.
Which are just beautiful
Yeah,
in general. I'm going to give away. I have 1 and 2. I'm going to give them away on my stream at some point soon.
I can't give mine
Upstairs.
away. They're the only ones I have.
Well, I have 2. I
Fair
have
enough.
very generous friends that overlap, knowing that Katie's main interest is World of Warcraft. So I ended up with 2 of each. So I'm
Well,
going to actually give them away on stream fairly
there you
soon.
go. If anyone here hasn't got one, check out Meraki's stream when she does that.
Drop a follow on our stream and you might catch one.
Yeah. Um, there is also the different small books that you could take. I mean, it's more specified stories, but it's a good thing to have an idea on what interactions there is between different, magics and all this sort of thing, basically. There is the other book, I keep forgetting, the children's book. That's pretty helpful as well. I'm forgetting what it's called. Traveler's Guide, isn't it? I
I
think
have no idea.
I think it's the
I didn't know there
Traveler's
was a
Guide.
children's book.
It, it's like a teenager sort of thing, and it's pretty good. It has a lot of information on like races you rarely hear about as well. For example, there is a drawing for the first time of a ogre female in it.
Elusive ogre female.
Yep.
Second only to the dwarf female.
Hey, I have a dwarf female. What are you talking about? But there's quite a few tidbits in it that are quite interesting actually. It's all about a young human basically traveling out in the world. I think there's interactions with him and Tyrande as well at some point. Yeah, so it's a pretty decent read, I think. It's yeah, as I was saying, you don't really have to go all out on your background either. It can be just a basic thing. I mean,
Yeah, you don't need to know how many friends he had in childhood or what was his favorite toy or things like that necessarily off the bat.
I personally recommend improvisation when it comes to, because I think it helps kind of stimulate the mind as well when you're RPing and someone asks you, "Oh, where'd you come from?" And then
No
you can sort
matter
of figure out a
how
story with there.
well you think out a character,
Yeah,
when you bring that character into roleplay, you are probably going to find that they shift, that they sort of, like when you build a house and it takes a while for the wood to settle?
yeah,
I think it's kind of like that. There's a settling process, and things do tend to lean or stretch or shift a bit in that process. So, leaving yourself some room for that to happen, and to, because your character in theory might be different to what it turns out to be in practice. Just give yourself a little bit of leeway with letting that flex and develop as it is.
yeah. Definitely. I mean, there's plenty of characters that I've had that have ended up in the complete opposite direction to what I had to begin with, basically, after interactions with people or events or all these sort of things that kind of have an impact on your character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to have a basic idea so you know how you sort of going to go into it. But aside from that, you shouldn't worry too much about being too detailed with the background either. Um, let's have a look.
You could maybe litter in some hooks. That's one of the things that I like to do with mine, is to give them some motivation and give them some hooks that other people can get into, that there's, give them something to do. Like, you can create a soldier and throw him into the world, and that will work just fine. He can get a job, he can go and do stuff, he can join a mercenary company, and I'm sure they'll be doing things and he can follow on that. But the best characters that I have ever met are the ones that have a personal motivation beyond just that.
Yeah,
There's something they as people want to do with their own lives and beings, that they obviously need a job and whatever else, because that's just part of life and they need to do all these things, or they're doing it for X, Y, or Z reason and whatever else. But they have this own personal motivation, so even if nothing else is going on, they have something that they want to get done.
yeah. Even if they complete that sort of motive they have, there's always something that extends out further from that as well
Yeah,
later on.
in doing that, in chasing that motivation, you will find that it will spiral into other things, probably half a dozen other things, which is why having it is a really good idea to have.
Yeah, for example, I don't know, young boy Jem wants to join the army. He does that. There's part of his first motivation done. His end game would probably be, let's throw for this character, be somewhat like his father, war
Yeah.
hero.
Or maybe he wants to be a war hero, so he's always trying to get better and get better and get better. And
Yeah,
maybe that leads him into then to some foolish decisions, like chasing glory into dangerous situations that he really shouldn't be in or he's not ready for, and that kind of thing. And then he grows from that experience. There's a lot more there than just doing what he's told,
yeah.
via his guild or order or whatever that he's
Maybe he
joined.
could end up rebellious in that sense, or he could
Yeah.
be
Maybe
very
he gets
disciplined.
disillusioned with his
Or,
goal down
yeah,
the line, and then he finds himself sort of lost and adrift and doesn't know what to do with his life, and all sorts of things could happen. But having that goal, no matter what way it plays out or you twist it, is just vital to having a holistic, deep character.
It's good to keep your interest locked onto the character as well, because if it has no motive or anything behind it,
Yeah.
you have no actual motivation yourself to.
It it also is part of creating evergreen characters, which is something I'm going to talk on about on the blog coming up. Is where, because I find a lot of people struggle with, they create a character and they join a certain guild or a certain group or whatever they created for a certain niche, and then when that thing doesn't pan out, or the guild disbands or there's trouble or whatever, and it doesn't work out the way they hoped, they're stuck with that character
Yeah,
because that was, it relied so heavily on that particular thing. So evergreen characters in my eye are characters that can survive those things. They can survive all those changes around them, all those guilds changing around them. And one of the key points of that is that character being, strong within his own right. He has his own motivations and things, and his own drives and stuff. There's a key part to that character being able to survive things. Because if you think about it as people, right? If you lose your job, you don't just cease to exist.
what really? God,
You have to go on and find something else, and even you have something that you want to do, and even if that does or doesn't pan out, that's a path for you. So I think we need to treat characters more like that, give them those kind of motivations.
something that could help you with that is mood boards, and
Oh, I love me a good mood board. Are we going to get into mood boards?
yeah. Although I don't personally do them because I'm the sort of person who kind of keeps everything in their head.
I had to purge my mood boards. There was over like 700 pins on each of my characters' mood boards, and I was like, "This is too much. This is not a mood board now. This is just a clutter." Um, but yeah, I had to purge them recently. But I love mood boards, and whenever I'm not feeling a particular character, I find them so good. It instantly snaps me right back into their headspace and gets me inspired to do stuff with them again.
It's something good to look back at. Basically, mood boards, for whoever doesn't know what that is, you pick a certain aspects or items, colors, whatever, that kind of
Sometimes songs,
yeah, that kind of align with your
or
character.
quotes, or artwork, or anything at all. Some people have folders on their computer, I believe, of like just pictures and bits and pieces and things that remind them of their character. I think Pinterest is the be all and end all resource for making mood boards because it's just so accessible. But there's loads of different ways you can do it. Playlists, I've like some people have playlists for their characters on Spotify because they sort of resonate more with music and things like that. But all that kind of stuff is really, it's really good to be able to, it's like a touchstone, when you touch back with it, you kind of remember where you were going with your character. You remember that cornerstone, that motivation, that drive, who you built them to be. And it helps if they're getting like lost in, other storylines and other things that are going on around them. It helps to refresh yourself with, the concept behind the character that you made.
Yeah, yeah, like Kate as you said, Pinterest is a good place to do those sort of things. Tumblr as well, I believe it would be
Yes, a
decent for it.
load of, I always never think of Tumblr because it confuses the hell out of me. I never understood how it worked.
Don't worry, I'm the
Uh,
same.
but yeah, I know a lot of people had like massive, collections of aesthetic pieces about their characters on Tumblr as well.
Yeah, no. There's also people who use Twitter for character specific. So they create Twitter for the character specifically, and sometimes post things that kind of correlate with their characters basically. So they have a sort of directory
Let
that
me
they can
just, I'm
scroll
gonna
down it.
find I'm gonna find. I have boards for like I am a Pinterest addict to be honest. I have boards for every like race and stuff as well on mine and different resources for writing. But let me just find those as an example.
You can throw up there. I mean, if I were gonna do
There we go.
a mood board for Ursula, I don't know, 3 items, maybe a sketchbook, magic, obviously. Ashenville. I mean, Ashenville has a big impact on her storyline so far, which
Three
is
items.
where she grew up and where a lot of her drama happened.
Yeah. But like things that just make you resonate with
Yeah,
the core concepts that you created. Mine is just a mess of all kinds of things. I mean, they're all things that help me remember the character and like get the kind of theme that I'm going for with him. So it works. But yeah, it's also a lot. A lot more than 3.
Check out an example there. I don't have any myself, so can't dump it up there. It's something you can expand upon along the way as well. You don't have to
Yeah, you
pick
can.
everything at once.
No, exactly. This is the thing. Like, it's all there, and you can build upon it. And if you're wise, you can go back and cull some of the things out of it as well, because otherwise it'll just amass. But and you can follow other people's and things like that as well. So it's really handy if you like if you've got another character as well that you're like getting into roleplay with, you can kind of get an idea for their kind of atmosphere and aesthetic a lot more than is allowed in the Blizzard interface and things like that.
Yeah.
I love it. You're a mess. I know, Emery. They're calling me a mess in chat fuse. Can you sort this out?
You're, I think you're. Well, I guess I'm the boss of you here, but for the most part, you're the boss of me, considering I'm lower in your guild.
Oh my goodness.
You should be giving them the good old smacking.
Those hooks are what make the character interesting. Combat can, that is exactly right. And it's because it gives them depth. It makes them. There's that idea they throw around of like a cookie cutter character. Those cookie cutter characters are the ones without that extra layer. That extra layer is what makes them stand apart.
Yeah.
It makes you interested to know what's actually going on with them, because you can sense that there is something going on with them beyond just, the surface value.
Oh, I fell through the boat.
Jesus, a nerd. I feel better now.
Ash
Better
always
calm you
bullies
as well.
me. This is mean. I'm here trying to help, guys, and we're all both being bullied. The heck is this? We should just quit whilst we're ahead.
Are we ahead?
No.
But yeah, know your lore, have a basic idea in mind of your culture, have a basic idea in mind of what kind of things will lead your character to where they're at, to try and keep it consistent as well. The thing is, I find that consistency is a very underrated idea when it comes to characters. And I mean, characters obviously change over time and they develop, but there should be a line of consistency between that, like a reason for why they are the way they are now and a reason for why they change to be the way they are in the future. And that line of consistency grounds you into that character. And I feel like if you just chop and change things too much, you're going to lose your grasp on that character and who they are and why they are too much. So I think backstory is important for a character.
I think a good way as well, aside from mood boards, writing up certain impactful events you've had recently. Say, for example, I don't know, your character's best friend died in a fight against a horde or something. And
you know what we
write it
do?
up.
Haven't done for months and months, but what we used to do in Oath was every month I would drop a little like a prompt, like a little story prompt on our forums. Just things like trying to think of one now. The most influential person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just give you that little moment to think, hang on, who is the most influential person in my character's life? And, how has that affected them? Those kind of things they're interesting to think about, but they will also give your character an extra layer of depth completely subconsciously.
Yeah. What I've been doing otherwise with Ursula sometimes is writing past stories. So an age where she was a child still, for example, and how her interactions with her siblings were, and her mother back then in comparison to what it is now and how it's shifted, So Ursula used to be a sort of the one to follow in her mother's footsteps, basically. But through given time, she's now probably her most hated child, basically. One she doesn't work functionally well with anymore. I do have those stories up as well. I can probably, share them out. I don't owe you money at all. You owe me money, Sam. Good thing
I'm
with
just
mood
totally
boards.
plugging tonight. Excuse me. I'm being the rudest.
That's fine.
Here's my Pinterest. Here's my plug.
I'm just gonna check something quick. No, the bot's refusing to work at the moment, so I'll probably have to look at that after.
I'll screenshot you my settings that I have for mine. See
No,
if that helps.
stop that.
April. This is not April hour.
It's not April hour. She's not gonna bark again. Right, where was I? Okay, yeah, character traits is good to. Mood boards are good to look for, like character traits as well. I mean, colors themselves. There's different colors that represent different emotions, right?
Adelpha in chat is big with colors. He's that guy. I get him to do the colors for all my characters. I'm like, what color is this character? What color is this character? He's really good at colors.
Tell you what, if she's ever laying down next to me next time, I'll put the camera on and you can stare at her do that. She's jumping on me at the moment. Sorry, guys.
That's what we need, Fuse. We've been stressing out on how to get face cams in here, but really what we need is a dog cam.
Yeah, what we need is a dog cam. I think Jake has had first-hand dog cam before on when we talk on Discord. Colours, yeah, that's what I was talking. So, I mean, obvious ones, I don't know, like red for, rage, or even passion as well, I think. Green, envy, blue, sad. There's a lot of different colours that stand for different emotions, and
here's the thing. I'm going to link another one of my character boards, right? Because my other character's board colour is like a sort of a mossy green.
Yeah.
According to Simon. And I agree with him, that's why he's good at this. And I actually, because I have no life, literally the epitome of no life, I went and colour coded his entire Pinterest board.
Let's have a look at this.
To that green. So there you go. There's a color coded Pinterest board. I need to get out more. This is a subtle cry for help, I think.
When you're too dedicated to roleplay.
Color code your friggin' Pinterest board. Oh my god. But yeah, it helps. It does, because it feels like him. It has that resonance.
It does, yeah. I haven't used colours personally. Again, character traits sort of build up with me. When it comes to me personally, I tend to improvise. Like I said, I have a basic idea in mind. I'm like, okay, how am I going to approach this person with this new character I've got? And for example, with Ursula, firstly, she was very like a social butterfly, very enthusiastic, very happy, all that sort of thing. And it was very easy to go up to someone, be like, "Hi, how are you?" Like compliment and all that stuff. It helped build upon that, basically. Gradually, with time, events and stuff, she's a bit less naive and open to talking to people just like that. But character traits are a good thing to have to begin with. It will change down the line. I'd reckon
one of those things that you can do is, remember, there's always the one thing Tumblr was good for. I don't say one thing. There's loads of things Tumblr was good for. One of the things Tumblr was good for is there was always those little like quizzes, like, can you summarize your character in 3 traits? Chat, summarize your character in 3 traits. Go, go, go.
Well,
I'll
do mine as well. Why not?
Yeah, because it'll help you sort of like ground them and what the core of their being is. Like, they just cut away all the excess. The excess is important, but it's also very important that you stay true to the core of the idea.
There you go. Here's 3 from me.
Hopeful, enthusiastic, and creative. I like it.
Whereas, I might as well add a Horde character into that, with Jerisa being cautious.
A liar.
Cautious, a liar, and
charismatic, narcissistic, conflicted.
I'd say conflicted with mine as well. It's good to list these things, though. Something to consider as well is the flaws to your character, and the virtues. What exactly happened in your character's life, or something that's it sort of impacted them, that's given them this sort of idea. For example, this senile, or not senile, jaded priestess of mine who still lives in their old ways, seeing arcane and all that stuff as a bad thing still, the source of all things evil, quote unquote.
I also wrote some blog posts on this that I'm totally gonna plug as well.
Yeah, you can feel free to plug them. It's good to have a written format to it as well. I mean, I did forget to mention names, and I'm kind of writing that for Meraki at the moment. And if you need like a idea on names on specific races, they'll be up there at some point. I think so far it's just Orc for now.
Yes.
And I think I was doing Goblin or Worgen next. I haven't started
Goblin
it yet.
is coming up on Saturday week.
Yeah, I'll be writing a little naming guide for Goblins as well. I forgot what I was mentioning. Oh yeah, flaws and virtues. Is there anything that's sort of a big flaw for one of your characters to stand out and have an impact in your roleplay for you personally, Meraki?
Flaws for my character. Which character do you want? Do you want Bug or do you want Theo?
Let's go with Thea, so I can,
Let's go with Theo, right.
exploit it.
Theo's got a few flaws. He can be a bit zealotous at times, which I might seem odd for a criminal, but it's a thing. There's a whole. It's complex. He's a complex man under it all, but he's also got a really bad temper, which is much more understandable and obvious. Much more people see that than they do anything else. He's got a really bad temper. He can be very overprotective and overly violent, quite quite often. But yeah, I think the one that a lot of people don't know about is that he's quite he. I took the idea of principled. He's very very principled, but he's so principled in such a messed up way that it's more of a flaw than a virtue, to be honest. And I kind of like turning that idea on its head, whereas making something that's generally a good thing into a bad thing. Because I liked complicated.
Again, I'm going back to Ursula for my one. I don't know. Her biggest flaw is probably her naivety.
Yeah, he's very much into control, by the way, as well. And if anything does not go how he has, assumed it will, he doesn't like that. That's when the temper comes out.
Oh god. Yeah, the character flaw for Ursula would be naivety. I mean, she's very. She likes to look in the good of others, but obviously not everyone's actually looking to do good. Basically, I mean, she had her ear bitten off for one thing, like a bit of her ear because of it.
Pirates, man, what are they even getting up to?
God, you don't want to know.
Biting off ears? What kind of savages are they?
I would explain that. It's an impactful story arc that kind of happened with the Myrmidon, and it kind of shifted the ranks in the guilds, where Marcus is now captain, as most people sort of know that, and Ursula is sworn into the ship at this point. It's a kind of a path where Ursula could have fallen down a more, the sort of upbeat lunatic sort of thing.
Yes, the scary kinds, because
Yeah.
they're kind of manic.
Yeah,
They terrify me.
that's a path she could have gone down, were it not for
Genuinely don't know what to expect with them.
were it not for someone else stepping in to kill the elf in question that assaulted her. Instead, she was just there savagely beating her to a pulp, and then someone else finished the elf instead. There was a big influence for Ursula's hope, and she likes to believe that tomorrow will be better than today, basically.
Tomorrow.
Pretty much. But that was a sort of let's just stay away from Mike Tyson. she could be up Mike Tyson easy. But yeah, it was a very impactful thing where she could have gone to this sort of manic stage where she was just like, fuck it,
The important thing with flaws is that your character should have them, end of story.
Yeah,
It doesn't really matter what they are, but you should have flaws because no one is perfect. And, even if they were, that in itself.
Even the most perfect of characters have flaws. I mean, pride for one thing could be something.
Yeah. But the thing is, be careful with your flaws. Don't give your character a flaw that is going to cripple you getting into roleplay. Like, if you decide your character is socially outcast and never talks to anyone, roleplay is 98% talking to people. And you are going to struggle.
Yeah.
If that's the character if that's the character flaw that you've decided to go. So be careful. Don't shoot yourself in the foot.
To be fair, that can be a flaw that you can fix with interaction, but it'd have to be with a player that.
Yeah, you'd have to have someone else, like a friend on hand, that's willing to force that character into interaction and drag them into things. But I'm assuming someone who's brand new and creating new characters is not going to have an ally to buffer their socially awkward character.
There's still a chance for that though. Saying that, I had a void elf who was sort of like that, where
Yeah.
she's very temperamental, antisocial, but there was always someone who, I think they nicknamed her Sunshine as well. You know, as a ironic sort of thing, who kind of forced her into social situations basically, which was pretty funny to see. She was kind of there being all grumpy, like
Yeah.
I hate
If
this.
you're going to have that kind of flaw, I think you really need to balance it with a very strong motivation that that character has to get involved with things, regardless of hating it. You know,
Yeah,
you have to kind of temper that out. Otherwise, you are just going to end up standing at a street corner for hours on end and think roleplay is crap.
yeah, pretty much. And I think I saying that, like I said, it worked with Zenra, but the character I had before Ursia, which is Kalira, who was very spiteful as well, and it was very hard to interact with her. I ended up killing her off. She died in a, I guess, heroic way, protecting one of the crew members, I believe it was, or one of the crew members' mates from being, killed by a Silphid swarm. But yeah, it was very hard to get interaction with that character. Um, Virtues. Don't know where to start with virtues. I guess it's the morals your characters have. I mean,
It's their code.
yeah,
You know, virtues are basically stuff that they're good at. Their strengths
their strengths and what they consider
and
to
their
be,
drives. Yeah.
yeah, their drives. That's what I was trying to find. Their drive to do something. It's something good to have in mind as well. I mean, again, it helps with the motivation side of things, as
Yeah.
we mentioned earlier.
And even the worst of the worst trashy characters have virtues
Yeah,
or should have virtues. There should be something that character is, some kind of strength that they have, even if it's like strength of will or strength of, if they're determined maybe, or they're dedicated or committed to whatever stupid cause that they're following.
yeah, yeah. Even most evil characters can have something that they consider virtuous themselves, or as people mention, evil is in the eye of the beholder, as it is anyway. So,
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah.
um,
Scariest kind of evil is the evil you can understand, or whatever the saying is.
tell us your virtues, go. What is Theolane's virtues?
Thielen's virtues. He's very fair, he's very reasonable, and he's very self-controlled.
Um, my one probably understanding, forgiving. Uh,
He's not forgiving or understand.
there is a limit to that forgiveness, but she is very forgiving for us. Yeah. Uh, I forgot what I was going to say for the third one. What do you want? No, don't jump on me again, please. Ow. Yeah, forgiving, understanding, and probably just content in general. Really, just a happy character.
Bless. Can I destroy her?
If you wanted to go down the manic path, sure. Stop. Stop. God
Who
damn it.
doesn't love a good Joker villain?
I think this is a sort of stream where I have the dog harassing me.
He does give second and third chances when they shouldn't be given, but usually because he is going to gain something from it in the end.
Yeah, I got a second chance. What are you talking about?
He's very manipulative and very cunning. Like, there's a lot of bad. There's a fair amount of good in Theo, but there's a lot of bad as well.
Yeah. I mean, where can you start with all these sort of guidance things? I mean,
The best way, I think, to come up with flaws and virtues is not to pick them out of a hat, but to look at the character background again. So going back to just how important it is to have a solid character background. Think about the influences that your character would have had growing up and what that they might consider to be important values from that. Like, was your character ever around the Church of the Light? Because I know I'm speaking to a lot of Alliance people. And what do they consider, were the three tenets to be? virtuous? Do they have them or do they not? And is that a source of contention or a source of pride for them, etc.? Like, it doesn't always have to be a yes answer. It can be an, they can not have them, and that can be as capable of providing RP as actually having the virtue. For like blood elves and whatever, they grow up in a very culture that sort of prizes power and success and that kind of thing. And how did that kind of affect their character and their drive?
If you thought as far as their siblings and their parents and whatever, how their virtues and their things could have impacted your character, is a good idea to keep in mind as well. So, I mean, let's say for example you have a mother who's very religious, all for the light,
Yeah, they could end up influencing their child along that line too, or the child could rebel completely against it.
God, children are so rebellious.
I know, right? Mine are not in bed, as you may have heard in the background right then.
What if you tell them to not go to bed? Maybe they will.
I'll give it a shot next week. But yeah, so basically, flaws and virtues should work intrinsically with your character's background, or maybe you can create some interesting point in their history that developed a certain flaw or virtue or whatever. Make story out of it. The more you put into these things, if you just pick them out of a hat, they're not going to mean anything to you, and they're not going to mean anything to anyone else.
No.
The more you put into them, the more deep your character's going to come across to both you and everyone else. The more interesting they're going to be.
Careful selection and thought put behind it, basically.
Yeah, because it's consistent again, and consistency creates characters that are believable, and believable characters make people relate and associate and get interested and invested in them.
Yeah. Okay. Where can you sort of you've got your character, you've considered most of these things, you have a basic idea in mind. Where can you actually start to shape it? And I mean, for me, I'm always going to suggest different hubs for people.
Even if you just go to the main city and sit and watch for a while,
Actually, before I fall into that, a good idea is through observation to get an idea of your characters as well. I mean, obviously don't copy someone else's concept.
Pick up your character having a fully formed idea, because the minute you get in game, the characters and the guilds that are around and the things that draw your interest might pull away from that. So be flexible. Have an idea, but I would spend some time just looking around, watching things going on, and just see what's there and draw from that and see if that affects or changes your character any, while you still have room to bend.
Not just watching people in hubs as well. As a new player, some ideas you can get as well are from websites like RP Find and Argent archives. There's a multitude of different characters out there that you can sort of get an angle, an idea to go out. But again,
see what everyone else is doing.
Don't try to copy them. Don't copy them.
But see what they're doing, because it might give you ideas of your own.
Yeah, it's a good thing to consider to look at these sort of things. There's a big archive out there on Argent archives and these other RP websites where people create their profiles. You can route around for a while and get an idea in mind. But going back to observation through RP hubs, you don't really have to sort of throw your character in right away. You can just observe and see what's going on, how your character might approach things, at different times.
Funny story. That's exactly how I got into roleplay. I had rolled a Blood Elf rogue when my main PvE realm was down for maintenance one day. And I was in stealth at like level 6. Glorious level 6 in stealth. So my stealth was trash, but I was in stealth anyway, because I was like, maybe there's a chance they won't see me. And I was so paranoid that people were going to see me and think that I was intruding on their roleplay, that I was like running from bush to bush, trying to like also mask my stealth, because I knew my stealth was so bad. And like hiding behind benches and stuff while I was following people to watch what they were doing, what this roleplay thing was about. And at the end of it, I was there was one of the characters that I'd seen doing this thing that was interesting. So when he walked off, I followed him, like I said, running from bush to bush, hiding behind all of these like in-game terrains. And he had obviously spotted me. I didn't know this, but he had. And he led me unknowingly outside the city And then he stopped and he called me out in character, and I was like, oh shit. I panicked so bad. But we actually, I was like, well, I have to now. So I went for it. And he was really understanding. He was really good. And what he said to me was, he whispered me afterwards, and he was like, listen, because you were making such an effort to genuinely try to hide and not just like stealth up in my face, I thought, there's obviously some kind of talent here for a decent role player, because she's putting some thought and effort into it. And I learned so much from that guy, honestly, because he took the time to pander to my level 6 ass.
That's that's something you should consider as well in general, people. I mean, you have new role players who come into the realms, they still come in daily,
They
I
might
guess.
not know what they're doing. Like that character, as I was saying earlier, I said, "Oh, she's born in a Shattrath," because when I logged in, I assumed that the available game world was the game world, and I didn't take into any consideration that some of it had only appeared 10 years ago. But you know what? He was like, "Listen, this is okay. we
Yeah,
can."
if you see someone new like that, it's a good thing to give them a nudge, help them out, give them a pointing fingers,
Yeah, some people are not bad intentionally. They're bad just because they just don't know any better.
yeah.
And if you spend the time to help them out, throw them some resources, show them that roleplay can be fun, you might make an awesome role player someday.
Yeah. And we have a little story. I remember when I was still role playing Kalira, where Marcus there was this new, I guess this new player. I don't know if he was a new player, but new to RP possibly. Who was running around us, trying to figure out what's going on. Marcus, I think, invited the person to sit down beside us and sort of see what roleplay is like, and telling them how to do emotes, how to approach things. It was pretty cool to see, and obviously nice of him to do, because he kind of gave this person an idea of what roleplay really is, and maybe that person's found interest in this sort of thing, gained another roleplay on Argent, I guess.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, to start with these characters, the best thing is to go to hubs, pretty much.
Yep, just see what's about.
The hubs most people will point you towards for the Horde are Silvermoon and Orgrimmar, whereas Alliance tends to be Stormwind most of the time. These are the big hubs. There's obviously smaller hubs who, like
Yeah.
our guild, the Myrmidon, go towards Feathermoon sometimes, where there's a lot of like Night Elf walking around sort of thing. Obviously there's other characters now and again, but it's heavily based around those races. Um, promote the character growth. Yeah, Feathermoon's in Feralis. It helps promote character growth through these sort of interactions as well. I mean, through social interactions, you might find the events we were speaking about last week as well, where you can join in on someone's storyline or something.
Exactly. The best way to get involved in stuff is to be around and to talk to people, because they'll tell you what they're doing and what's going on, and they'll be like, "Oh, I have to go. I've got to do this," and they'll be like, "Oh, what's that?" The best way to be involved is to be there,
Yeah.
to be around, and to insert yourself politely.
Good thing to note with this: if you were to approach, say, Meraki's guild, their events would be more player-based interaction. I guess it would be right to say.
Yeah, it's a lot more social. I don't know if you'd call it social, because it's not like parties and stuff, but it's not so much fighting based, and
Yeah.
it's not versus the world. It's sort of more of a player versus player, but in a kind of social setting. It's a weird thing to try and
There's still
describe.
story. Obviously, there's still story to be had there, but it relies more on interaction than it
Yeah,
does
it very
someone
much
DMing it,
relies a
basically.
lot on organic character interaction.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to have in, especially in hubs. If you're going to go in there, you'll get these little, very various small storylines for you to interact with, basically. Um, Whereas something like a military guild, they might invite you into something like, I don't know, the Horde is attacking this place. Do you want to come help us? And it'll be more DM'd, more streamlined, I guess would be the word for it. both can promote different sort of character growth that impact different ideas maybe later down the line for your character, or it's helpful to have basically.
Yeah. And don't be it's easy to say don't be scared of people because it's a terrifying idea to just speak to a stranger a lot of the time. But if you can, while you're watching, if you see something that takes your interest, like we're criminals, for example, if someone messaged one of us and said, "Hey, listen, I'm interested in buying drugs or getting mugged or whatever else," we would entirely be for that. So if you see something you'd like to get involved in, be it uh, law guild RP or some kind of interaction that's going on in the street or whatever, and you're not sure if it's if those people want people around it, just send them a message. Just drop them a line out of character and say, "Hey, listen, would it be okay
If my character did this and that.
yeah."
I mean, good example with Katie with the thief thing. If you're trying to roleplay a thief, poke them, say would it be okay, or if someone approaches you, you should go for it. Really, I
Yeah,
mean, it promotes that interaction, promotes the growth
exactly. And
basically.
it means that everybody gets to come out of it without feeling like they've been taken advantage of either as well.
The way I personally see it, character growth is through any personal interaction you have with your
Yeah.
characters through any given method.
Literally anything you do with another character has the potential to leave your character coming out of it different or changed or on their road to change in some way.
Yeah, it's a good thing to consider. What did your character gain from this
Yeah.
conversation, basically,
Did their
or
opinions change? Did
yeah,
their opinions solidify all the more? Are they willing to entertain something else now? Like
or maybe
Urshia, for example, is a particularly good character, but she's probably more lenient towards hearing out at least criminal sorts now that she's like, spent all this time with pirates and stuff than she would have been previously, perhaps.
yeah,
Because she knows they're not all bad and intense, etc., because she has learned that via seeing them do all this stuff.
it's it's something that can severely impact your character in different ways. It's a good thing to consider. Again, maybe apply it onto your mood board. There's a sudden change. I don't know. Maybe they got a tattoo or something. um, I mean, lastly, it's just to immerse yourself, basically. Oh, I died. It's to immerse yourself in the role you've portrayed and shape them in whichever direction it takes you, basically. I mean, I don't think I can personally add upon what we've discussed further, but
No, I think that is it's so personal, that's the thing.
it is personal, yeah. All we can do is provide a stepping stone, but the rest is for you to walk across, basically.
Just make sure they're doing it. Your character shouldn't be static.
As a as a reminder,
In saying that though as well, like they shouldn't be changing every day. Your character's not going to develop or grow overnight. These
no,
things take time.
it does, yeah. Um, it, I
Here's another
personally don't
blog
have
post
the longest
about development.
lasting characters. I mean, there's a lot of depth with my characters, which
You keep killing them off.
that's the
You're
thing though. I'm
ruthless.
I'm very willing to kill off a character as long as it makes sense, you know.
Yeah,
And with a character like a Fused Flashback, for example, who was this this whole front was a carnival, but the background was sort of like a family, criminal family sort of thing. And it came to a point where she did very treasonous behavior towards the hordes and alliance in general. Selling them out to different organizations basically to gain power and wealth and all this stuff, and it ended up with her putting her head on the block, which made sense.
someday. Someday I'm going to do it for Theo.
You might. Here's a good thing to note, guys. No, there's still been no one who's come to me yet, and who's asked if they were allowed to go into a caravan, and in her caravan is a lot of voodoo trinkets, all that sort of thing, a lot of
Nice.
magical items in there. So I mean, if anyone ever wants to chase that, feel free to poke me. It's somewhere
Where
hidden.
is the caravan? Is anyone going to stumble on it by accident?
It's somewhere very neatly hidden in the southern Barrens.
Some unfortunate traveller, or fortunate traveller perhaps, stumbles into this
I always had this
wealthy
idea.
old caravan.
I always had the idea that the caravan was also enchanted with a sort of protection spell, where it sort of like comes to life if someone tries to get into it.
I'm now imagining the wardrobe from Beauty and the Beast. I just want you to know that. Just
I
so
was
you can
more
share
imagining
this.
if you ever watch Monster House,
Oh no, I've never seen Monster House.
the caravan just kind of comes alive with like wood chomping teeth, you know. You could get the oath to the Barons. I mean, the Wonder Spot Carnival was a carnival that sort of went well, you know, around quite a bit.
Oh, is it a carnival based caravan?
It was, yeah. Like I said, carnival front background was well, inners towards it. You know, the more ties you have to it, there's a lot of dark, seedy underbelly to it, basically. So yeah, the caravan itself is, you know, sprayed in all this wonder spark sort of thing.
Oh, you never know.
You have
You
a character
never
in the
know.
Barrens, always good to go there. I think that's it for the character conversation. We went through it all again. We came in thinking maybe this will have to have two parts to it.
We did it. We churned through it pretty quickly, and
Yep,
my cat is now digging into my bin bag, so I'm gonna need to run off.
yep. Since the things aren't working, which are
Yes, our commands aren't working, so the links are down below.
yeah. If
We're
you want,
trying to get them to pop up in chat periodically, but it's proving to be a process and a half.
as I've mentioned before, I'm very slacky. Uh, as yeah. So the links are down there. Follow me on Twitter. I mean, I post quite random stuff there. It's not entirely related to this, but it's more so if you want to interact with me more there. AD creators have a variety of different creators there: artists, musicians, writers, or as for me and Katie, streamers. You can sort of follow their works there. Maybe even, you know, provide your own works in it. The Discord link is right below the stream. There's the YouTube, where I upload the video for you to watch if you've missed out on it. Also, please subscribe. Trying to reach 100 so I can, you know, change that URL because I hate the whole randomness to it. And Patreon, if you feel like supporting, feel free to do so. There's no paywall hiding anything behind it. It does sort of mean that you'll get an idea behind some projects I might have in mind, but nothing hidden. Basically, it's all there for people to see. Otherwise,
Maybe some advanced notice on topics or
yeah,
something like that.
maybe even have a poll if we get to a point.
Or like a credited thing down below.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to add another credits thing because that is something I've considered to put down there. Otherwise, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for hanging out tonight, guys. We shall see you next week.
Maybe I don't want to. No, see you guys. Take care.
I'll be on my own then.
Yeah, you can come stream
That'll
with
be a
me. I'll give you
shambles.
my password. You can go onto it yourself and stream. Alright, see you guys.
Bye, folks.